one is kind of separated and very independent from the other. But I feel it is important to discuss the issue of development briefly, because many of you did not read the guidelines. Many of you did not follow instructions. And I like you to please let me begin with this development issue from verse number 76 in Surah number 16. All of you who have copy of the Quran, English or Arabic, whatever you can read, please open on that verse 16, Surah Al-Nahl, and verse number 76. It gives a comparison between two kinds of persons. One of them, this is extremely the issue of development, really. One of them has four characteristics of backwardness. One, cannot communicate with others. Two, cannot produce, cannot do anything good. Three, is dependent on others. And four, cannot even follow instructions. وضرب الله مثلا رجلين أحدهما أبكم, has no means of communication, لا يقدر على شيء, incapable of production, وهو كل على مولاه, dependent on some other one, on a master or on someone, some other person. And the last one, أينما يوجهه لا يأتي بخير, cannot follow instructions. Whatever instruction he may be given, he won't follow them, so he won't perform. The real issue of development, the Islamic theory of development, or rather really not the Islamic theory, it's the modern theory. The most recent studies on development argue that the difference between an underdeveloped society and a developed society, an underdeveloped economy and a developed economy, is not the quantity of capital invested. It is not the availability of labor, man hours. It is not technology, and it is not natural resources. If it is none of these four elements, which everybody thought in the past, they are the basic elements of growth and development. If these have really very little effect, very little. In some studies about South Korea and about other countries, it showed that altogether do not account for more than 2.5% of the rate of growth. The rate of growth, if it were, say, 100, and the rate of growth in South Korea was 7 to 8% for a long period. And they noticed that out of this 7 to 8%, all these factors don't make any substantial effect. 2.5% out of the 7%. Then what is the reason? What creates development in South Korea and in other countries and other experiments? These are experiments. The writers of them studied several economies for the past 200 years, and they discovered that really what makes development or hinder development are institutions and policies. institutions and policies, institutions like creating either physical institutions or internal institutions or legal institutions like laws for business, laws of companies, protection courts that protect the production and its result and the profit, and other laws that create that enhance the creation of physical institutions. And the physical institutions like the existence of companies, the existence of banks, the existence of other things like infrastructure, etc., etc. These are the institutions, and they and policies, of course, that are done by the government, the people in the government, the different administrations, etc. Now the question is, who create these institutions and policies? Maybe another questions we need to realize: who creates development? Development is created by individuals, by managers, by entrepreneurs, by individuals who have zeal to become richer. They want to become richer, but the policies and institutions may either hinder them, like of handcuff them, don't allow them to do any activity, any productive activity, or they may encourage them and support them and give them incentives to do so. But the question again is, who makes policies and who makes these institutions, who creates them? For instance, Islamic banks in the world came about 50 years ago, started, but who creates them? Why did they come? They came, in fact, against the prevailing laws at that time in all countries, and to permit an Islamic bank in any of these early countries that had Islamic banking, like Jordan or Egypt or Bahrain or Malaysia, they required a special law that allows them to create a bank. So there were individuals who got the idea, but they implement it even against the law, against the regulations, against everything, and they had to get by some political process special laws to allow them. For instance, the first Islamic bank in Egypt was issued by, or was permitted by, a decree by the then president dictator Anwar al-Sadat, and most likely it was by a bribe given to him, and he made it at a time when the nominal parliament that they had, though was there a parliament, so-called elected parliament, at a rate of 99.8%. That's the Arab elections always. So he gave that decree when the parliament was in recess. Same thing, King Hussein in Jordan gave a permit for the first Islamic bank in Jordan at a time of recess of its parliament. Similar thing in Emirate, when the Dubai Islamic Bank came as a result of the good relation between the founder of the bank, Sheikh Saeed bin Luta, and the president then of the Emirate, Sheikh Zayed, the father of these guys who are now there. So the point that Islamic banks, this kind of institution, came as a result of the zeal of their founders who want them to be created, and they created them even though they were in an environment that was all the time hostile to them. Uh, this is the process of development then. It's made by individuals who have the zeal, but now policies and institutions who create them, they are created by individuals, whether within the government or outside the government. Individuals create institutions as they created Islamic banks. Individuals create policies. These policies and institutions may enhance, if they are positive, they may enhance development, and if they are negative, they really hinders development. For instance, the institutions that were created in the late 80s, 1980s, and in the 90s, not in the late, really, in the early 1980s, and in the 1990s of the past century in Syria, were hindering development, to the extent that in these 2 decades of the 80s and the 90s of the past century, the Syrian economy declined 20% instead of increasing and developing, let alone the revolution and the destruction that came later. This destruction came after 2012 or 2011. But in the previous 2 decades, or the last 2 decades, the gross domestic product of Syria declined because the laws that were there and the policies that were there were not enhancing, rather hindering development. At that time, I know, for instance, some companies had to close because in order to get permit to transfer foreign currency that you own into local currency, it required about 25 signatures before you get permit, to the extent that you really cannot do the business in this kind of environment. So institutions and policies are created by people, individuals. These individuals may be in the government or maybe outside the government, but they are the ones who create laws. They are the ones who create policies. They are the ones who create also physical institutions. Now the question again, how come in some countries, policies and institutions that are created are enabling, enhancing economic development, and in some countries are hindering hindering economic development? Where does that come? It comes from the values, the
Sheikh, I think it got muted.
Okay. Now, okay, thank you for reminding me. I appreciate that. Okay. The values of individual citizen who could be in the government, could be managers in governments, could be directors, could be in any position that create policies. These or could be outside, like what happened for Islamic banks. They were created by persons who were completely outside the government, and they had to kind of push against the current, against the existing environment, push for the creation of the institutions they want. These are created by what is called the inner institutions. The inner institutions are the set of values that are within individuals. Now, this set of values within individuals, what are they? I don't know why this is not coming. Let's try the next one. Okay. Uh, I don't know what slide came blank. I see it here, not blank. I see a question here. Where do we start then? We start by the human beings. We start by changing the minds of the human beings. Al-Quran clearly says that God will not change the situation of a people unless and until they change what is inside themselves, what is inside their own hearts, what is inside their own mind. And once we change what is inside ourselves, then God would change our situation outside. In other words, the situation outside is changed by people who make institutions, who create institutions, and who create policies. And that is clear in the Quran in two verses, as you see them on the screen. But now again, uh, what are then? Okay. What create these inner values? It is our personal. I don't know why. This is a very important slide, as a matter of fact, and why it's not shown. Anybody knows can help me?
Prof, I think you need to click more because there are like animations. Not
Well, I
not the
am
whole thing
almost.
is gonna show from the very first time.
Yeah. Well, I did click more.
Because when I try it myself, when I click like 3, 4 clicks, then the whole slides show our slide.
Okay.
You can also maybe click escape and then it'll just show the slide.
I did click this and that and the other, and I clicked several times here on this slide 10. Slide 10 talks about inner values. I suppose everyone has them anyway. I sent them to you yesterday. So you must have downloaded them and you have them on your own laptop. So please follow them with that. The inner values are uh, they are created by inside the individuals by their upraising, and the Quran gives that comparison between them. This is the verse. Please open that verse with you. This is slide 11. The verse that says uh, God gave a parable of two persons. One of them is deaf, incapable to do anything, dependent on his master. Whenever you give him instructions, he won't bring any good. That is, he won't really follow instructions. So this is a detriment for a person, really. Having being able to follow instructions. And really, I want my students anywhere, whether here in my university, I teach here in the university, PhD students, and we require that every one of you must have a course at least in economics and another course in finance and banking or money and banking. And also we required that this course is given to graduate students or to fourth year in the undergraduate. So we didn't accept students who were looking for only attendance. We accepted students who wanted really to learn, and we accepted students who I suppose should follow instructions. So anyone who asked about what is the homework, and several of you did, they did not read the instructions. Had they read the guidelines, they would know what was the homework. Anyone who was waiting for the first day for the homework to be given to you, that means did not read the homework, the guidelines. And again, anyone who sent me the homework not following exactly the example that was given, again did not follow instructions. And if you don't follow instructions, how do you expect to be an effective element in the development of your own countries, in the development of your own even families and communities? To be an effective element in development, you have to have these four characteristics changed. And the comparison here, the Quran is very brief and even amazing in its expression. It compared that with a person who ordains justice and who is himself is on the right path. Now, to ordain justice, of course, you have means of communication, you have knowledge of and criteria to know what is just and what is unjust. So you ordain justice, you are active in your community, having communication, definitely able, because he ordains, practically ordains justice. Again, that means he is active, doing, performing, producing, doing things. So he is capable of producing. And of course, he is on the right path. He selected the right path for himself or herself on his own, meaning that he is independent in his thinking. He is not dependent on others. And clearly also, he can know what is the right path as instructed by God. So these are the elements of development. And so please be careful for that. And I pray to Allah that all of you will be of the category of the second example, not of the first example, who doesn't read instructions, and when he reads it even doesn't follow them. That is a sign of backwardness, and that is an element of backwardness. And this is the problem, in fact, probably the basic problem of all the underdeveloped countries. Underdeveloped countries are usually called by in the United Nations just as a bribe, really, to their leaders. They are called developing countries. They are not developing countries. They are backward countries. In reality, they are backward countries. So that's what it is, and nothing else. I don't know what is the reason. Again, slide 14 does not show. And then let me take to slide 13, sorry. Again, I don't know what is the problem. If anyone can help, please help me. I don't see any reason why it is not responding. So the inner values, anyway, slide 13 talks about the inner values that are created by the environment you are raised within. by parents, by peers, by teachers at school, by people, neighbors who may have influenced you, by imam of the mosque. And these are the people who create these inner institutions, who create the ability for a person to be developed or to be a backward person, element of backwardness. Of we are talking economics, please, and understand that this is economics too. So backwardness in economic sense is caused by these backward inner institutions that are inside the mind of people who make policies and institutions. Okay. Uh, Let me see if okay, I'm trying now to reach slide 14, which is the second part. I needed to uh, discuss the issue of development, and I hope that I am understood clearly. I hope that you understand what I mean exactly. And those of you who will follow us, who will be with us, I want them to be effective, to follow instructions, to be responsive, and to understand and ask intelligent questions. There was no need that I should say, oh, each of the choices in the multiple choice questions should be at least 10 words. You make it yourself intelligent. I said it should be challenging. And when you put it so simple as it came in the slides that we have, it is so simple, it's straightforward. It does not challenge, it does not provoke thinking in the reader. So we need thought-provoking ideas. Some of you did excellent job. I tell you now, I have seen some of the questions that you made were good, but I noted also that many of them were not. And many of you also until now did not send me the revised homework as requested. I requested to send the revised homework, and yeah, I didn't give a time, but I left it to your understanding. Could the time be extended for 3 weeks? Could the time go beyond the second class? No, it definitely cannot. So it's your intelligence is sufficient for that, and you should have realized that if it is not within 24 hours, then it is 48 hours, then it is definitely before the time of the following class. Now, this class, nobody forced you to be in it, and I am also volunteer to you to help you and to help those who seek help, who really want help, who really are willing to spend their effort to make good understanding. And inshallah, I hope I will be able to help you in that. But those who don't have time or their circumstances don't allow them, you don't need to be in this class. Okay? You can take any other thing, a lighter thing, not this class. And yani from day one, I insisted that there will be homework. Sorry to say that, but you kind of forced me, some of you forced me to have to say that. Now we will discuss why riba is prohibited. Okay? Uh, we have a thing or a process that the Quran really taught us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he wanted to give some instructions about a thing, uh, knowing the human being weaknesses, he taught us in the Quran in more than one incidence to make it gradual, take it step at a time. And with a step at a time, for instance, the first verse that came in relation to liquor, alcohol, it says that we gave you fruit from which you create سكرا ورزقا حسنا. So it says, oh, from which you create liquor and you create good sustenance, good food, good drink, good things. It didn't call the sakar good thing, but it didn't say it is prohibited, and it says this is what people do. You create from these fruits we give you, you create sakar, liquor, or you create good thing. There is definitely an indication here by saying, oh, these two things you create, didn't say one thing. That means that the sakar is not really a rizq hasan, a good drink, a good thing, a good sustenance from God, a good giving from God. Okay, so another verse came that only says, okay, they may have some good thing and bad thing, some good thing for people and some bad things also. And then a third verse came that says, quit it completely, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, quit it, that's it. So in this kind of understanding, similarly, it looks to me Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also did something similar in the matter of riba. Take, for instance, the verse, let's see. Okay, we need to survey the verses, the text in the Quran for understanding. Okay, and what happened? He doesn't want to come again? I don't know. Okay, please open it in your on your device, laptop or whatever. It is here, slide number 16, the verse in Surah number 30, Surah Ar-Rum, verse number 39. It says, وَمَا آتَيْتُم مِّن رِبَا لِيَرْبُوَ في أموال الناس فلا يربو عند الله. Whatever you give on riba basis, so that it increases in the properties of other people, with God it does not grow. So here it's interesting really to note that whatever you give as for the objective of a riba, you want riba out of it, so that it increase in the properties of other people. Now, look at it, please. If it increases in the property of other people, if there is an increase in the property of other people, do you deserve this increase? If your neighbor's cow gave birth to a baby cow, do you take part of that, or do you take it all, or do you have any right to claim full or partial ownership of this baby cow that your neighbor cow gave? No, definitely. So the answer here definitely is no. You intend it to be increased in the property of other people. How come you may deserve any part of this increment? If it is an increase in the property of other people, they are the ones who are entitled to take it. So here is the important difference between the loan contract. When you give on riba, you give a loan, and the loan contract creates a debt on the other. And the debt is an asset to you, but it is an abstract asset. And at the same time, it is a liability on the borrower. But this is also an abstract liability. Whereas say the $1,000 that you gave that became now in the hands of the borrower, that $1,000 is owned by the borrower, the one who got it. It is not owned by the giver, the lender. The lender's property becomes a debt, which is an abstract item. It is an asset. It is a real asset, but it is an interpersonal asset. It is abstract interpersonal, not a physical asset like the $1,000 that you gave. The $1,000 that you gave as a loan, these dollars become owned by the debtor or the borrower, not really owned by you. And if he uses them, he can use them or she can use them any way they like, for consumption or for production. They may produce or they may not produce. They may make loss or they may make profit. That is their business and their property. It is not yours. So look at the contradiction here. There is a contradiction that you want it to increase, but you transferred ownership of it to the other guy, and what you own now does not generate any increment. And the other guy, he may use it for anything, which could be productive or could be only consumable. So may produce or may not produce, may give profit or may give loss, but that is the other guy's business, the other guy's affair, the other guy's property, and the other guy's increment. It's not yours. In reality, and God is the ultimate truth, isn't God? Al-Haqqul Mubin. How do you translate Al-Haqqul Mubin in English? You say the clear, capital C, clear truth, capital T. So Allah huwa al-haq. So in according to al-haq, there is no increment, because your property does not give any increment. So this is an important thing, and this is the first verse that came in regard to the issue of riba. Again, the second one, number 17, is not giving here. Is riba an increment? Now, the transaction that caused the riba, the loan, what does the loan do? The loan gives the ownership of the physical loaned thing to the borrower, and you replace your ownership of that by owning a debt on the borrower. So you become an owner of a different kind of asset, which is a debt, and the borrower becomes the owner of that of the physical, say, amount that was given to him. So the issue here, there is contradiction, because you intended it to increase in the property of other people. But listen, if it increases in the property of other people, it is theirs. You have no right to claim it. You are contradicting yourself. You want part of it, but it is not yours. It is theirs. It is their property that increased, not your property. So the loan contract transfers ownership. And of course, if there is any creation, it is only by the effort of the other guy, not by your effort. Your property does not create increment, does not generate any increment, and you didn't do any effort on your property to create increment. So the other guy had a property that is able to increase through action on it, and he did that action. He may have made profit, and that profit belongs to the other guy, does not belong to you at all. So in fact, in your property, there was no increase whatsoever. So how come you may claim an increment? Let me see if I don't know what is the problem here. I really don't understand it. And any one of you who can help, please help me. And I don't see anything here. Again, verse or slide number 18. Later
Sheikh,
on,
one thing we can do, maybe if we flip the slides and then you can speak on it, that way everything would show up.
how do
Because so
how
let me try it.
yeah, how do I flip it?
So do you
Oh,
see what I'm doing
now,
now?
yes, yes. Okay, now it's coming.
So maybe like we could do that. So what I was doing, I'm clicking the arrows on Teams, not the presentation, but on Teams at the bottom of the screen there's some arrows. I was clicking those arrows.
This arrow here.
You can take over again if you want. There's a button that says take over. You may take it over again if you'd like.
Wait, well, where is the button? I don't see a button take over. It says navigating back. Anyway, well, anyway, now it comes. It's okay. Go ahead, and I'll just tell you. Please add this. Change the
Sure,
slide.
sure.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for helping.
No problem.
Okay. So now let's go to the next one. Okay. Go to the next one. Okay. Now came the verse وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى, verse 275 in Surah number 2. And that is the final, and God made sale permissible and made and prohibited riba. Now notice here, sale is a contract between two persons. وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى, what is the meaning? It doesn't say وَحَرَّمَ الْقَرْضَ الَّذِي فِيهِ رِبَى. This is the part of the Arabic style, really, because the word وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى, it means وَحَرَّمَ الْمُعَامَلَة, it means وَحَرَّمَ the transaction or the contract that contains riba. It's not simply حرم الربا. How would you make tahrim of riba? You make tahrim of the contract that generates riba, that includes a riba clause or anything like that. So it is not really حرم الربا means حرم the contract that contains riba. Next, please. Okay, خلاص, it's coming here. I'm able to get it. Okay, now notice in the other verse, in verse 279 of the same surah number 2, it says, وَإِن تُبْتُمْ فَلَكُمْ رُؤُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ. But if you repent, you shall have your principal. And then it continues, لا تظلمون ولا تظلمون. You shall not make injustice against others, and you shall not be put under injustice from others. If you repent from riba, the previous few verses we're talking about riba, and it says God made sale permissible and riba prohibited. Now, the verse 279, just 4 verses later, and the one before it also talk about that you have to quit any remnant, all remnant that are left out of riba, you have to quit them and consider them, make them prohibited. And this was confirmed by many hadith sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the point that I want to make at this moment here is, if you repent, you are entitled to your principal alone. What does that mean? It means any increment above the principal is what is riba, right? If you repent from a riba contract, then you are entitled to take your principal. And anything above principal is definitely riba. Now, then if we ask the question, what is the definition of riba? Can any one of you answer me, please? I mean, go ahead and open your microphone and answer me. Any one of you can answer me. What is the definition of riba? Or put it in writing anyway. I don't know how to communicate on this. Okay.
It is, sorry, it is the excess on something which is um, um, something which is lent, which on like basis,
Okay. So
i.e.,
which
yeah,
is any excess above principal. Of course,
right.
we are talking about loan, not about sale. Is it permissible to take profit in sale above your principal, the cost of the item? The earlier verse said sale is halal, is
Yeah,
permissible.
it's on like
But
to like. For
now
example, gold versus gold, silver versus silver. So when
that's a different issue. But now we are talking about the quantity, the quantum that you have given. You have given 1,000, you take 1,000. You have anything above the 1,000 is what is the definition of riba. And who defines riba? Then it is not the books of fiqh. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran defined riba. In this verse 279. This verse means anything above the principal in a riba transaction is what is riba. And this is what you repent from. And if you repent, you are still entitled to your principal. You take your principal, but you don't take anything above it. That is really regardless of whether this thing that you take. Oh, okay. Okay. So the definition of riba, regardless of whether it is a percentage or not a percentage, a large amount or a small amount, whatever it is, any increment above the principal of the loan that you gave is what is riba, and that definitely applies in a loan contract or in a debt extension. There may be an already existing debt and you extend it. It's the same. So in either of these, this is the increment, and the increment in riba is what is haram, regardless of its size and whether it is a percentage or not percentage. This definition is very important, and it is very important to note that God gave it, not human beings. Let me tell you this example, which is an example that happened with me. In the early 1990s, I was a research officer working as research in the Islamic Development Bank in Jeddah. And I received once, which I still have it. I did not dispose of it. I still have it in my files. I received a letter from a person from Delaware in south of New York, Delaware State. The person described himself that I am the secretary of the Council of Southern Black Churches. We know that interest is prohibited, riba is prohibited in Islam, and riba is also prohibited in Christianity. And we want to make a project for an institution that is riba free. He asked me in that letter, would you like to review? We have prepared a draft, a master plan. Would you be kind enough to review it for us? I told him, yes, I will review it. He sent it to me, and I still have it. He sent it to me by email at that time, not by email, by mail, in fact, at that time. And I got it, and about 100 pages, and I reviewed it all. But imagine that the project that they want without riba, they put in it, interest must not exceed 5%. Well, for God's sake, this is also riba. I answered him, and I told him, and the guy gave him detailed answer then in writing, which I still have it in writing. I have copy of it. I sent him detailed answer that it is still riba. 5% is riba. And I gave him the definition that is given by God in the Quran, that anything above your principal in a contract that cause riba. Let me go back a little to the previous thing, maybe. Okay, here. وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. Probably one reason why God did not say وَحَرَّمَ الْقَرْضَ الَّذِي فِيهِ رِبَى, why he did not say and made not permissible a contract, a loan contract which contains riba, because riba may be contained not only in a loan contract, it could be contained by rescheduling a debt. And rescheduling a debt is not a loan given at that time. It is an already existing debt, and you reschedule it. Or any amount that may be due on you, like we have, for instance, in the car insurance. If you pay it as one lump sum, you pay $700, and you have the right to pay it on 3 installments, but at an increment of, say, $20 for each installment. That is again riba. So when it comes that way, and also in another saying, the Prophet ﷺ defined riba in a way that makes it so clear as it is in the Quran, really. He defined it in a saying that it says, if you sell at 2 prices, like for instance, cash price 100, and price after 30 days 110. If you sell at 2 prices, then you have to take the lowest, or else it is then riba. So the difference, notice here the accuracy of the Prophet ﷺ in his description. He said, sale at 2 prices. Now, what does sale come? Sale transfers ownership. You become an owner of the item that you bought. And the seller becomes an owner of what? Of a debt on you. So when the seller becomes an owner of a debt on you, then and if the debt is due now at this moment, if you pay the 100 now, everything is done. But if you don't pay the 100 now, you delay it and pay it after a month, then it has to be 110. This is an increment in a debt. This is really riba. And this is what the Prophet said. It is increment in a debt, and the debt does not increase. So it is increment in a debt. And this is why probably in this verse that you see here, وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى, did not say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and made prohibited the contract that includes riba, or the loan contract that is a riba based. It didn't say that, said riba directly, because a riba directly may take different forms, not only or not necessarily a creation of a debt by a loan at the moment. So it could be by any other reasons, or it may be included even in a sale contract. Like in a sale, you pay me now 10, or after a month 111 after a month. So that increment is also riba, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam defined it. And this definition, in fact, came from this verse, anything above your principal. A sale create debt, and the amount of debt that is created is 100. If you take after a month 110, then this is an increment in a debt, nothing else. Okay, so what is riba then? Any increment above the principal in a loan, but not in a sale, because sale is permissible and increments in sale are also permissible. And again, the verse continues that it is an act of injustice. Now, what is this injustice? It is essentially injustice to the truth. In reality, your property does not increase. So where is the justice if you claim an increase on a property that in reality does not increase? So this is the issue of oppression or injustice. In riba, it is injustice. Basically, it is injustice to the truth. And of course, if you take anything above your principle, you are taking something that really belongs to the other person. So you are taking a property that really belongs to the other person, and that is, of course, injustice to take it. Okay, so let's take the injustice in riba. It is not real. It is injustice toward reality. It violates the entitlement rights. The entitlement right is, of course, the right that is, if you own a thing, you are entitled to any increment in it. And of course, you bear any risk to which it is exposed. So that is part of the human basic fundamental right, the right of ownership. And there is no value created. If you create value by your property, then you are entitled to that increment that happens in your property. But if your property does not increase, you cannot claim any increment, and there is no creation of added value. If there is no added value, any claim is injustice then. Okay, so what is the financial riba? In fiqh definition, an increment in a debt for the period it stays with debtor. The source of debt is immaterial, could be loan, sale, or any other transaction. Maybe some two brothers inherited from their father who died. They inherited some property, and one of them negotiated with the other to pay him some amount as a price, and he takes all the property. For instance, if you add any element of increment in it because of time, then that element becomes riba, and not as a price, but as an increment in a debt, not as a price of the item, it's as an increment in the debt. So in fact, riba is categorically and exactly equal to what we know today as interest. Okay? period. Now I need a break because Maghrib prayer in Istanbul here was at 6:11. So after the beginning of our class, so I'll take a break, please. I only make my part of the mic is muted, and give me probably 10 minute maximum, inshallah. I need to make wudu and make my Maghrib prayer and come back to you, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. I am back.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Well, I mean, it is interesting, really, that in fiqh books, you find the definition of riba as an increment in a debt. They usually add the word a contractual increment in a debt. So this is what is it. And the riba then is interest, and any claim otherwise is really a false claim. Some people claimed, oh, riba is not, it's only for the poor, taking exploitation of the poor and so on. No, riba is exploitation of the truth, of reality. There is no real increment that is created by a loan contract. Whereas a sale contract definitely creates increment. A sale contract wouldn't happen unless it is better for both parties. If it's not better for both parties, it won't happen. That means a creation of utility for both parties. Okay, so this conclusion is very important, and let's go to the next slide. What is a debt? Okay, yeah, apparently it is, as one of you said, it is from this animation. That is the problem. Okay, but alhamdulillah, now we solved it. Okay, let's look at the nature of a debt. What is a debt? A debt is an interpersonal relation. It is an abstract asset. It's not physical. So it doesn't have intrinsic utility. It doesn't have utility that it creates by itself. Are there abstract assets that have intrinsic utilities? Yes. A computer program, for instance, it is also abstract. It's only writing some vague symbols. But this is a computer program, and you can use it and make benefit. It saves you time, etc., etc. So, but this kind of asset, which is debt, by its nature doesn't have any intrinsic utility. Have you seen any person being even pride? It doesn't make pride. يعني Arabs at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam were proud of owning a lot of camels, for instance, or a lot of sheep. But owning a lot of debt doesn't give you any pride and any person. Rather, it exposes you to a risk, which is the credit risk. Excuse me to take this medicine, please. So it doesn't create any, it doesn't have an intrinsic utility in itself, like a car or like a cow or like a computer or like an apple. It's not like that. It is incapable to increase or decrease or to produce increment or added value. It is uniquely different in its nature from all other assets, tangible and intangible. So it does not increase. This is what is the debt. Okay. Now, trying to understand the boundaries of the prohibition. Let's look at the permissible alternative. The Quran in 274 does not deny similarity. Notice what it says. The verse that is before, and God made sale permissible and prohibited riba. The first part of this verse says that is because they said sale is just like riba. In Arabic, it is ذلك بأنهم قالوا إنما البيع مثل الربا. Then immediately the verse says and God made sale permissible and prohibited the riba. It does not deny the similarity. There is some similarity, but the similarity is okay. If there are more differences that are very important, then we should take these differences. Similarity alone should not deceive us into accepting that a permissibility of riba. What then warrants prohibition of interest and permissibility of debt creating sale? If I sell you something on credit, you pay me after a month. That's permissible. And that is included under the word, and God made sale permissible. وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ. It's included under that. So what is then what warrants the prohibition of interest while we permit debt creating sale, even if it were at a higher than the cash price? If or at a higher than cost. I bought this thing for 100 and sold it to you on credit for 110. That's permissible. And you know that my cost is 100. What is the problem in that? You may know it or you may not know it, but that is immaterial to the permissibility of the sale, although it creates a debt. The difference, we see it in these verses that we've seen before, 279 in Surah number 2 and 39 in Surah number 3. That is because of the reality that your property is not able to increase. Your property is a debt, and the debt does not increase. There is no way that a debt may increase unless you are artificially say, oh, I want an increment of 5 or 10 or 3% or 10%, whatever it is. But this is not an increment in the debt. When the cow gives milk, you become owner of the milk it gave, which is a natural thing, which is produced by the property that you own. But your property does not produce any milk. So how come you claim ownership of milk? Okay. Sorry, now it's coming. I see it here. Okay. What is wrong with interest? It is based on invalid postulate or assumption that debt creates value. It violates property right, the entitlement right. The borrower who owns the thing that he borrowed is entitled to any growth that may happen in that thing. And you are, as a lender, you own a debt, you transformed your property of that thing that was in your hand earlier into a debt which is abstract and unable to increase or to grow or to have any increment, then there is a violation of property right. You are taking something that belongs to others. 3, deviation from the reality in existence of increment and in its amount. When you give a loan of $1,000 for an increase of 50 or for an increase of 7% per annum, where does this amount 50 or the number 7% per annum come from? The increase itself is an assumption, and the amount of it is also another assumption. It allows rescheduling with increment and allows interbank debt transactions. Both do not create value. Let's see. If someone owes you $100 payable today, and he didn't pay it today, and he still confessed to the to being under debt to you of 100. Does your balance sheet change by extending the loan until tomorrow, or until 3 days later, or 10 days later? Does not, your balance sheet does not change. It's still 100. You have a debt on so and so of 100, and there is no reason for any change in it. Because it is not paid. So rescheduling of debt for increment is really not justified, because you did not create any added value by that. And again, transactions between banks, debt transactions between banks. What difference in GDP if X becomes the creditor to Y instead of L? L was the creditor at the beginning of the transaction. Now this debt is transferred to X. So what happened in the world? Nothing happened really. No change in income, no change in GDP, no change in the wealth of people. The wealth is still the same amount, and only we changed the creditor from X to L. So what the hell does that do? It does nothing really. So how come we claim that no, there is an interest created in that, and GDP has increased? Notice that we need really to re-understand the accounts, the national accounts of GDP, and all other definitions, national income and personal income, etc., etc., and distinguish between a transfer of wealth, transfer of money or wealth between one, or property between one person and another, and creation of wealth. They are not the same, and there ought to be really a redefinition of these national national income accounts. Okay, continue. Number 5, it does not produce financing. It does not preclude financing non-productive and non-desirable activities. Giving a loan means the borrower can do whatever he likes with the loan. It's none of your business. This is a disposition of his or her own property, and he or she does it the way they like. It's not none of your business. And essentially, really, you cannot make even a condition on it. Essentially, by laws, essentially, you cannot make any condition that you, or you cannot use it for, except for this use. That's artificial addition to the loan contract. It's not justified really. So then you take a loan and use it for anything that may not be socially desired or morally accepted or anything like that. You use it to marry another girl, a second wife, or you use it to get liquor, or you use it to anything that is not appropriate. That is not precluded. But when I give you, as in Islamic finance, I give you goods or services. So I know what I am giving you, and I know that what I am giving you is beneficial, is useful, and you asked for it, you wanted it, and it is beneficial. I won't give you liquor because it's harmful. I won't give you cigarettes because it is harmful. And so I can determine that what the use of my funds are really done in the appropriate, in the socially desired way. It extends financing market beyond the size and needs of real market. This is an issue here that is really important issue, and we discussed it probably before in our previous session, that when we limit financing to giving goods and services and assets, we are limiting the amount of financing to the amount of real transactions in the market. And we don't make any excess financing beyond what the market needs. Excess financing beyond what the market needs is one of the causes of crisis, and crises very often are caused by excess credit and excess finance beyond the need of the real market transactions. So in Islamic finance, or if you avoid interest, you won't be able to expand the financing market beyond the size and the needs of the real market. In interest-based transaction, in lending, we have the basis of giving it is the amount of interest you get and the credit worthiness of the borrower. And that means, of course, we give the borrowers who have better credit worthiness more than others, or who can give me collaterals, I give them more than others. Whereas if we remove interest, we may then be looking at what is the use of the funds. We give you goods, we give you a car, and you pay later in financing. That is what is in Islamic finance that avoids interest. We give you a car, or we give you a computer and you pay later, or you buy a house and you pay later, or at installment, etc. Whereas in interest, we don't really look at what is financed. We look at exactly the credit worthiness and the amount of interest that is obtained. Okay, the objectives then of the prohibition of riba: affirming the Sharia characteristics of realism and maintaining its internal integrity or consistency. Consistency in Sharia, our respect. Now, I argue in other than this class that the Islamic economic system is more respectful and more attached to the property rights and to the human rights, the personal freedom, the disposition of your own properties the way you like, a lot more than capitalism. In capitalism, the fact that interest is allowed means a disrespect to the property right, because entitlement right is part of property right. If you own a thing, you are entitled to the increment that happens in that thing. Not another person is entitled to it. You are the only one who is entitled to it. So we uphold the consistency of Sharia, our respect of private ownership, of the right of ownership. Our respect of it requires that we should eliminate interest. We uphold the sanctity of rights of property and entitlement. We disallow debt trading and exchange, which is a non-productive activity, non-productive function. We don't add anything to the amount of wealth in the economy. We prevent transfer of wealth for reasons unreal or unproductive. And we channel resources, both human and financial resources, toward real production of goods and services instead of dealing with only pure financial transactions. And we prevent the use of properties for abath, for nothingness, for simply not creating value. And we send personal finance to where it belongs as a personal service. Um, Personal finance, many people talk about personal finance, both in Muslim countries and in everywhere else. Personal finance, oh, I need some money for personal use. I don't want to tell you what is it for. I need some money because I need to keep in my pocket some amount of money. Now, this is personal finance for without telling what is it for. Okay, now who should give you personal finance? It's a person who knows you very well, who cares about you, who would consider really, يعني it doesn't really much matter, even if you don't pay back, he or she still may give you. And I argue, who is the provider of personal finance? Best provider is your own mother. When you need money without telling what is it, the objective, what is it for, it's the best person who may give you that is the person who loves you more and trusts you more, and that is your mother, definitely. So personal finance should be based on personal relationships, not on business basis. Oh, we finished now. We still have time. Okay, we can start questions from now. Thank you.
I have a question about added value. Like, how do we have specific conditions that we can recognize added value through, or does it need some assessment from the scholars and it can change from age to age?
Added value is an addition to anything that is useful to human beings and their surrounding, whether social or physical, like environment or anything. So added value is anything that makes someone, if you give it to him, is satisfied with it, likes it, give him some benefits, some utility, some. So added value could be in the form of physical material increment, like a baby cow or milk from the cow, or it could be even a creation of writing a nice book that people would like and read it and have some good entertainment and good understanding of certain ideas or certain things. So all these are added value, could be abstract, or like manfa'a, for instance, utility of a car or of an apartment is an added value, of course, that is created by this asset. So anything, as we know it in economics, there is no Sharia definition of added value. It's anything that makes addition of a thing that is useful. Producing one jar of liquor, that's not an added value because it is harmful. Or producing another pack of cigarettes is not an added value, is in fact a negative value. Okay. Go ahead. Do you want to have something? Okay. Any other questions?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Okay, so I just want to ask another question regarding this previous question of added value. So say I purchase a watch for $100 and I sell that watch for 150, but I don't do anything to the watch. I just trade hands and I made the profit like a middleman. Is that would that be considered added value because I helped find the buyer and seller, but I didn't really do anything to the watch itself? And the buyer and
Yeah.
seller, they don't know each other, let's say, right?
You see, you didn't do anything
Mhm.
to the watch itself because you were thinking about physical addition. No, it's not an issue of physical addition. Its value for the purchaser is 150. So he is willing to pay 150 because he values it at 150. And when he values it at 150, there is an added value here created by the sale contract. That is why economists say always that a sale contract creates value. Otherwise, if it doesn't create value, it won't happen. Why should he buy it for 150 unless he feels that to him it gives him the benefit of 150? You are not cheating him. It's not that like what they say in some. I once asked a friend of mine who was non-Muslim and then he became Muslim. I asked him, what were you doing before you become Muslim? He learned some profession after he became Muslim. He became Muslim. I asked him, what did you do before that? He told me, I used to talk people out of their money. So I told him, what does that mean? Talk people out of their money. He said, I used to cheat them in talking to a people in a way that is very convincing, telling him that this watch is, which is only worth $10, telling him that this watch really has inside it diamonds, stones, and its nails are so and so, and so all this is lie, and it is really worth $100. It is in fact only $10 watch. So I convince him that it is really $100, and I got $100 from him, and I don't see him again. I go to another person. This is talking people out of their money by giving them wrong information and by kind of really cheating them to give you that money. So this is, we are not talking about sale of that kind. We are talking about normal sale that has full disclosure and full exhibition of the characteristics of the watch. You may have happened to get it at a good price from good source, and the buyer, for him it is worth 150. This is a real added value. And this is what is the effect of supply and demand in the market.
So, Prof, what if why can't we sell money for more money? Is it because the agreed upon currency? Let's say tomorrow, uh, today we sell apples and we make profit from them. Let's say tomorrow the agreed upon currency becomes apples. So we can't do that anymore?
Well, an apple is different from another apple, but a dirham is the same like the other dirham. A dollar is the same like the other dollar. How would you sell money for money? A dirham is exactly like another dirham, and a dollar is exactly like another dollar. But an apple is definitely not like another apple. There are no two apples the same by all means. So they are quite different, and Apple cannot be really money because of that. Because
But
standardization is part of the characteristic of money.
but the currency that we're dealing with today is not actually like gold or doesn't have intrinsic value. It can change in value.
Yes, that's right. But it has a guarantee by the law that it is acceptable in this society by any seller. It is acceptable by any individual in this economy. If you own a dollar, if you have a dollar in your hand in Canada, so the Canadian dollar, anyone is forced by law to accept it in payment of already existing obligations or in purchases of goods and services. That's a big difference.
Exactly. Dr. Munza, can I chime in into this conversation between you and Muhammad? Because in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, we know the hadith of Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when about the dates. So he traded one bushel of dates for two of different kinds. So isn't there the same example as that of apples?
It is related to that, yes. And this is why apple for apple again should be at the same weight. But that hadith of Bilal, anyway, is we will come later to it. But anyway, the hadith has two indications that are important. One, that there is a possibility of uh, excessive, which is riba. The word riba means excess. There is a possibility of excessive difference when you exchange one quality, one level of apple for another level of apple, or one level of date, as in the hadith of Bilal ibn al-Harith, one quality of date for another quality of date. So the hadith tells us that when you exchange it, as Bilal told the Prophet, or we exchange the good one for the bad one, one for two, one quantity for two, or two for three. And one for two or two for three, the difference is anyway very big. So it is artificial. He told him, well, this is riba, this is excess. This has riba, yes, and this kind of riba is called riba al-fadl or riba al-buyu'. This is another riba, which we will come to it later. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam guided him to go to the market, sell the bad one, the bad quality date for money, and buy the good quality date for money. Why? Because of two reasons here. One, that when you say one for two or two for three, it's too artificial, looks even with big difference between them. But if you go to the market, the minute differences in price that are caused by supply and demand will be known. So sell in the market at the market price. That will give you maybe the exact exchange could result in the final thing 1 for 1.72312. It's not 1 for 2 or 1 for 3. So you make it exact, in other words, and you sell for the for cash, and you buy the good quality for cash. And by the way, again, the hadith recognizes the difference between quality, but what it refuses is the arbitrary exchange of it. Make the exchange through the market, and that will tell you exactly what is the difference is. And again, there is another wisdom in this hadith, because the market of that area, Khaybar, is a small market. What is the population? Population of Medina at that time, at the time of the Prophet, according to the best estimation, did not exceed 5,000 persons, men, women, and children all together. And population of Khaybar, of course, it was much smaller than in Medina. So you go in a small market, The Prophet didn't tell him, ask what is the price in the market and make the exchange accordingly. He told him, go to the market, because your additional quantity your additional supply of the bad quality may affect the price in the market, in any small market. In a big market, it doesn't affect, yes. But in a small market, it does affect. And the market was small there. So the Prophet is telling us here, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you should really be careful and accurate here when you make the exchange. Otherwise, you enter into the area of riba. And this is the hadith. But anyway, that is riba al-buyu', not what we discussed today as riba in finance. And you remember one of the slides say riba in finance. And riba in finance means increment in a debt, period. And this is the way it is defined in fiqh, and this is the way it is defined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran in verse 279 of surah number 2. Okay, any other question? We still have time. Go ahead.
Yes, Akhi, I have a question. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, perfect. So two questions, if you don't mind. The first one is I was reviewing the references that you had in the instructions for this course. They are amazing references, but I want to ask, do we have access to them, or should we just buy them that are available on Amazon or things like that? And then the second question is regarding the buyer themselves. I hear a lot that we have like 50 contracts in Islam, and that's the one that we will be following or we should be using even in finance. And we should not or we cannot create new contracts. Is my understanding correct or no? We have the
Now,
freedom.
the first
Right.
question is about references.
Yeah, the references that you
Yeah,
put in.
references are given. No, you search for them. You find them. No, I don't have them. They are not available. You may find some of them online available, and some of them may not be online. You may have, if you wanted, you may have to buy it from wherever you can find it. For
Sure.
the second question, no, that's incorrect. And there are no 50 contracts. You cannot go beyond them. We will come, I think, either next meeting or the meeting after it. We will come to study what we call the nominate finance contract. There are 6 or 7, I think probably 7, nominate contract that we mean by nominate that these are mentioned in the books of fiqh, and they are studied and well defined for more than 1,000 years, since the time of Abu Hanifa and Abu Yusuf. So more than 1,200 years even. So they are well defined, well known. But from these contracts, we can discover and we can invent and create multiplicity of other contracts. And we did actually in Islamic banking and in Islamic finance over the last 50 years since the establishment of the first Islamic bank. We did create many contracts, new contracts that were not known in the Islamic classical writings. So it's incorrect that there are only 50 contracts. I don't know who told you that. Whoever told you that was incorrect.
So then in this case, we can, in finance also, we can use the rule that al-aslu fil adat al-ibaha. And then based on that, we have a specific values or a specific rules that could exclude some contracts and make them haram. Would that be
Right.
correct
I
then?
mean, we take the rules and we invent day and night. We invent new contracts in finance, and it will be fine in Islamic finance. I should say, for instance, Islamic banks, when they started, they thought that financing should be only on musharaka or mudaraba. And until today, there are people who play that old tone that risk sharing is the only way in Islamic finance, which is incorrect. Then in the late 70s of the past century, just 3-4 years after the beginning of Islamic banking, a writer came and invented what is called murabaha. And murabaha became a new contract which is most dominant now in Islamic banks. It's a beautiful contract. We will discuss it in detail. Then I wrote a small book when I was in the Islamic Development Bank as a research officer about ijara. And ijara became now, it takes about 30% of the financing almost all over the Islamic banks everywhere in the world. So ijara became very prominent also in Islamic banking. Then we have different forms of ijara and different forms of other contract and so on. We always invent contract. Okay.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
Barakallah fiqh. Any other questions? Yeah, I see a hand. Ziad. Go ahead, Ziad.
So in one of my research, I came across this opinion, and I don't know how valid it is. I I'm not sure. So they say that there is no riba in fiat currency because apparently Imam Shafi has the opinion that fiat currency there's no riba in fiat currency, and they also say that in a commercial transaction, you're not borrowing the money for the money itself. You're borrowing the money for like a car. Okay, or you want to buy a house. Therefore, that type of interest is permissible because you're not borrowing the money for the money itself, which doesn't make sense to me as much. But I don't know if you have come across this opinion, and if
I have come across this opinion, and we argued today that really what is riba as defined in the Quran is what is known as interest. So taking a loan to buy a home is interest. Whereas, are there any other ways to buy a home without interest? Yes, you can buy homes without interest, but using other means. So what we noticed today also, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited interest, but did not prohibit financing. In other words, financing for profit. This is what all Islamic banks do today. And they finance for profit, but they do not finance on the basis of extension of a debt or giving loans for increment. They finance on different ways. Not one of them is murabaha, and one of them I mentioned is ijara that ends with ownership. This is a new contract, ijara ending with ownership. So we do have contract that respond to all needs except one thing, which is not acceptable. It is clearly mentioned in the Quran, an increment in a debt. So once a debt is created, any increment in it is not permissible. This is what is prohibited. And this prohibition is very important because it means that financing will only be used for good things, for creating value, and for helping people obtaining things that are useful. We do not waste human and financial resources on debt readjustment and debt rescheduling and debt trading and other fictitious non-value creating activities. So the idea of it, yes, there are people who I don't know where do they get it from. Definitely from their own minds, which is very much influenced by the prevailing system. The prevailing system is a system based on interest. And if it is that way, then they want to justify everything that is in it. No, buying a house with a loan from a bank or from any other institution interest-based loan to buy a house, that is haram, and that falls under the prohibition of riba. Whereas buying a home through sale or through lease ending with ownership, or any other mean of any other contract that allows financing for profit without being increment in a debt. As long as it is not increment in a debt, what is prohibited is increment in a debt. So you look at it. Is it a debt? Taking a loan from a bank to buy a house, that's a debt to the bank. But how about if the bank buys the house at 100,000 and sell it to me on installment at 120 or 50? That's okay. That's sale. And that's sale at a higher price than the cost, which is permissible. So this is the essence of murabaha, for instance. So no, it's not acceptable. So this is what is interest, and the presence of Islamic banks is a clear evidence that it can be done in another way. But this other way has very important results, has very important implications. They do not create crisis by expanding the finance market a lot more than the real market. They go by the real market. So there is a big difference between them. Okay. Any other question? Yes, Mr. Naveed.
Yes, doctor. So my question is regarding slide number 26. What is wrong with interest? The first point that you mentioned over there, it is based on invalid postulate that debt creates value. So my question is like from the way I'm looking at things, and it could be because of the understanding of creating value. It might be different from what you were saying than what I'm thinking. Even debt creates value for both for the one who is borrowing and for the one who is lending. But the only problem is probably because that this value creation is haram from because of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's wisdom, what He has told us. Is that the real difference, or you were saying that it creates no value whatsoever?
No. Okay. Literally speaking, when a loan is given, a debt is created for the amount of loan, not for any bigger amount. Where is the added value? There is no added value created. When a debt is extended, what is the added value? Do we have any new computer in the world? Do we have any new Apple in the world? Do we have any new shirt or jacket in the world? No, we don't. So debt extension or debt transfer from one creditor to another, or creating a debt through a loan and waiting until after some time to be paid your property is debt, and the debt does not increase, does not create value. Where is the value that is created? We didn't say that lending is not useful. Notice, I never said lending or borrowing is not useful, but I said debt does not generate any value. Now, is borrowing or lending? I may need $100 and someone lend me $100. Or I have $100 as a lender and I gave it to someone who needs $100. Is it beneficial to the borrower? Yes. But what is the kind of benefit the borrower got? The borrower got with that, he still has only 100 and he owes me 100. But we got 100, he can go to the market and buy things for 100. Suppose before that he had only 100 and now I gave him as a loan another 100. Now he has $200. He can go to the market and buy things for up to $200. Notice what we did here. There was no increase in the 100. He cannot buy for 220. He can only buy for 200. We gave him an extended degree of freedom. Yes, giving a loan to another, that reduces your degree of freedom in the market, degree of action. How much action can you take in the market? For the borrower, it increased, and for the lender, it declines, it reduces. So when I give a loan, I reduce my freedom in the market. I had 1,000 and now I have only 900. I gave 100 as a loan. I can go to the market and take action up to 900. I cannot take action as I was able before. I reduced my degree of freedom and increased the degree of freedom of the other guy. But I did not add value. He still can only buy for 100. He cannot buy for more than 100. So his degree of freedom is up to that 100. I increased it, yes, but degree of freedom is not an issue that is for sale. That's an important thing. This is part of a human personal human rights, and human rights are never for sale. Only Americans thought that human rights are for sale, and this is the way they look at Palestine, because this is what they did with what is called American Indians. They got their land and thought this land is for sale and we can take it without anything. So يعني that Palestinian song that says land is never for sale. We cannot sell. Watan cannot be for sale. So we are still sticking to our land, and we will be in it, and we will remove any aggressor from it. That's the Palestinian song, what it says. So this is part of the human rights, freedom. We increase freedom by giving him a loan. And this is why, okay, you did help the other. We didn't say you did not help him. You helped the other guy, but helping the other guy does not mean you increased, you created value. You did not created any additional value by that action. You increased his freedom. And that is a help. And who says that everything has to have a financial right? And this is why the Prophet, peace be on him, told us that giving a loan is very similar to giving a charity. You are rewarded for it by God. When you give a charity, you are losing money completely. But here you are losing degree of freedom for a short period until he returns it back to you. So when he returns it back to you, you got your 100 back. But so the degree of freedom here, you lose degree of freedom. This is why you are rewarded by God. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in an authentic, correct saying, said that giving a loan is like it's like giving a charity. If you give a loan twice for the same amount, not necessarily to the same person, but giving a loan twice is like giving the same amount as charity. So giving a loan of $1,000 to a friend, and then another time give also a loan of $1,000 to another, to same or other friend, is like giving a charity of $1,000, and that is rewarded by God. One thing, please excuse me before I respond to the two hands that are now on. The one that the question that said about Imam Shafi'i and so on, fiat money does not, interest does not apply to fiat money. Now let me ask a question. Don't we buy food with fiat money? If fiat money is not does not apply, then what it is? It is exact money. Fiat money is money today, replaces gold and silver that were at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And at the time of Imam Shafi'i, there was no fiat money. So anyone who attributes to Imam Shafi'i something like that is incorrect and is wrong. Imam Shafi'i had an opinion that one kind of riba, which is riba al-buyu', does not apply on fulus, and fulus were not recognized as money. Fulus were the trivial small coins that each 1,000 filis equals one dinar. So it's very trivial amount. And in trivial things, he said in buyu' that it does not apply. But the riba in finance, nobody said from any ancient scholars or present knowledgeable scholars, nobody says that riba in finance is permissible. يعني, except this Mufti of Egypt because of political reasons only. Go ahead, Ziad. The other hand is gone now, Naveed. Go ahead, Ziad.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Yes, actually, that's where I got it from. I think some Egyptian scholar who was mentioning this. Okay, so my question, this one is, in a traditional mortgage, let's say it's a 30-year mortgage and you buy the property. The property is under your name, but let's say in the year 29 of the mortgage payment, you've default on your loan. The bank has a right, because your house is on collateral, the bank has a right to sell your property, right? And then sell it to recoup their losses. In an Islamic like finance or Islamic mortgage, because the bank is the owner of the property, so and you are also an owner. So that, let's say in a case where you own near the end of the mortgage period, you own 90% ownership of the house and the bank has 10% ownership. If you default at that point in time, how would the bank recoup their losses? Because because you have majority ownership in the house, you can just say no, I don't want to sell the house. Is that a does that make sense? The question.
Well, I mean, it's a good question from a student, not from a practitioner, because as practitioner, the bank would take collateral on the whole house. So the mortgage that is written in the municipality record is on the whole property, not only on part of it. And that applies only in one kind of contract, which is a lease ending with ownership. But so anyway, the collateral is on the total property, and the bank would sell the total property and give you take its part that is due to him and give you the remainder. The Islamic bank. So it's not. It's about the same. Okay. I mean, did I answer that, or still you have a question?
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, I took my hand out. No, thank you for the answer. Thank you.
Mhm. Any other question? Okay, if there are no questions, please make your homework according to instructions, follow instructions, and please memorize this verse either in English or in Arabic. وضرب الله مثلا رجلين أحدهما أبكم لا يقدر على شيء وهو كل على مولاه أينما يوجهه لا يأتي بخير هل يستوي هو ومن يأمر بالعدل وهو على صراط مستقيم. Please memorize this verse. Is also part of the homework, either in Arabic or in English. Make your homework, and those who did not make the homework in the final thing did not return it to me, I'll accept it. Otherwise, I'll accept it from them if they send it with the new homework. But if not, It will be recorded on them. One homework is missing. Another missing of a homework will mean that you will be blocked out of the class. Sorry for that, but rules are rules. Thank you very much. If there are no more questions, we can leave now, and thank you. Have a good day for all of you. Okay? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.